The massive alien ship appeared in Earth's orbit on a Tuesday morning. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck of the space station Harmony, watching the vessel approach. It was 3 times larger than any human spacecraft, with smooth, silver walls that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. "They're here," Jake said into his communication device. He had been preparing for this moment for 6 months. The Galactic Council had finally agreed to meet with humanity. After years of watching from the shadows, the elder races were ready to welcome Earth into the interstellar community. The alien delegation consisted of 12 different species, each more strange than the last. Ambassador Zekthar led the group. He was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large eyes that reminded Jake of a deer. His people, the Vorthik, came from a peaceful world where violence was almost unknown. "Welcome to our space station," Jake said as the aliens stepped through. The airlock. The translation devices worked perfectly, turning his words into sounds the aliens could understand. Zekthar bowed his head slightly. "We are honored to meet the humans at last. Your species has shown remarkable growth in such a short time." The first few days went smoothly. The aliens were impressed by human technology. They studied the station's systems and asked many questions about Earth's history. The humans shared their art, music, and literature. Everything seemed to be going well. Lieutenant Amy Collins was giving a presentation about human culture when she mentioned missing her dog back home. The translator made a strange buzzing sound as it tried to find the right words. "Companion creature," it finally said. "Companion creature?" asked Tijal, a member of the Crystalline Collective. Her body was made of what looked like living crystal, and her voice sounded like wind chimes. Amy nodded. "Yes, a dog. Most humans have them. They live with us in our homes." The aliens looked at each other with confusion. They assumed Amy was talking about some kind of livestock, or maybe a symbiotic organism that helped humans in some way. "These creatures," Zekthar said slowly, "do they provide food or materials?" Amy laughed. "Oh no, we don't eat them. They're our friends. We love them." The word love caused another buzzing sound from the translators. The aliens knew this word meant strong emotional attachment between humans, but they could not understand why humans would feel this way about other creatures. Commander Rick Hayes joined the conversation. He pulled out a small device and showed pictures of his family. There was his wife, his 2 children, and a large animal with pointed ears and a long snout. "This is my family," Rick said proudly. "That's Bruno, our German shepherd. He's been with us for 5 years. The aliens stared at the image. The creature in the picture was clearly a predator. It had sharp teeth, powerful jaws, and alert eyes. But in the photo, it was sitting calmly next to 2 small human children. The creature, Vex Plin of the Ascended Minds said carefully, "It appears to be a carnivore." "Bruno? Oh yes, he's a meat eater," Rick replied. "But he's gentle with the kids. He protects them." The aliens exchanged worried glances. A predator that protects humans? This made no sense to them. In their experience, predators were dangerous. They killed and ate other creatures. They were not companions. Dr. Lisa Park, the station's chief biologist, overheard the conversation. She decided to join in. "I have a cat," she said. "She's a great hunter. Every morning she brings me presents." The translation devices started, buzzing frantically. The word hunter, combined with presents, created a confusing message that alarmed the aliens. "Presents?" asked Zekthar, his large eyes growing even wider. "Dead mice, birds, sometimes lizards," Lisa explained cheerfully. "It's her way of showing love. She thinks I'm a terrible hunter, so she tries to feed me." Several aliens made sounds of distress. The idea that a predator would voluntarily give food to a human was beyond their understanding. In their worlds, Predators took food from others. They did not give it away. The cultural exchange continued for several more days. The aliens learned about human art, science, and philosophy. They were impressed by human achievements and their rapid technological progress. But they could not stop thinking about the strange relationship between humans and these companion creatures. During a meal in the station's dining hall, Lieutenant Colonel Ben Travis mentioned his 2 dogs back home. Rex and Luna, he said. They're Rottweilers. Big dogs, about 90 pounds each. 90 pounds? Repeated Teichel. Her crystalline body flickered with nervous energy. Yeah, they're pretty large, Ben continued. But they're gentle giants. My kids love them. They sleep in the same room together. The aliens stopped eating. The idea that humans would allow their young to sleep near large predators was horrifying to them. On their worlds, parents protected their children from dangerous animals. They did not invite them into their homes. These creatures, Zekthar said slowly, they are not restrained in any way. Restrained? Ben looked confused. No, they're family. They have the run of the house. They go wherever they want. Amy nodded in agreement. My dog has his own bed, but he usually sleeps on mine. He's been doing it since he was a puppy. The aliens were quiet for a long moment. Finally, Vexplin spoke. On our worlds, we have safety protocols to protect ourselves from predators. We build barriers, use technology to keep them away. You invite them into your homes? Well, they're not really predators anymore, Lisa explained. Humans domesticated them thousands of years ago. They're our partners now. Domesticated? The translator struggled with this word. We changed them over many generations, Lisa continued. We bred them to be friendly, loyal, and helpful. They chose to live with us, and we chose to live with them. The concept of choosing to live with predators was incomprehensible to the aliens. Evolution had taught them that predators and prey were enemies. The idea that they could become partners violated everything they understood about nature. Commander Tony Phillips shared a story about his childhood dog, a border collie named Max. He saved my life once, Tony said. I was 7 years old, playing near a river. I fell in and couldn't swim. Max jumped in and pulled me to shore. The aliens listened in stunned silence. A predator risking its own life to save a human? This was impossible, according to their understanding of natural behavior. As the cultural exchange neared its end, the aliens grew more troubled. They had come to Earth expecting to meet another civilized species. Instead, they had discovered beings who lived in harmony with apex predators. The implications were staggering. We need to see this for ourselves, Zekthar announced during the final meeting. We request permission to visit your planet's surface. Jake nodded. Of course. We'd be happy to show you our world. But as the aliens prepared for their descent to Earth, they could not shake their growing anxiety. What other surprises awaited them on the human homeworld? What other impossible relationships would they discover? The delegation boarded their shuttle with a mixture of curiosity and fear. They were about to witness something that would challenge everything they thought they knew about the natural order of the universe. The humans, unaware of their guests' growing concern, prepared to welcome them to Earth with open arms and wagging tails. The shuttle landed in a field outside Denver, Colorado. The alien delegation stepped onto Earth's surface for the first time, breathing the planet's air through their environmental suits. The sky was blue, the grass was green, and everything seemed peaceful. Welcome to Earth, Jake said, gesturing toward a group of vehicles waiting nearby. We'll start with a tour of one of our typical residential areas. The aliens climbed into the specially modified transport vehicles. As they drove through the suburbs, they saw neat houses with green lawns and white fences. Children played in yards, while adults worked in gardens. It looked like the perfect, peaceful society. Then Tyshul noticed something that made her crystalline. Body flash with alarm. A large animal was running freely in one of the yards, chasing a small human child. The creature had pointed ears, a long snout, and powerful legs. Stop the vehicle. She called out in panic. The transport stopped immediately. All the aliens pressed against the windows, watching in horror as the predator caught up to the child. But instead of attacking, the animal gently grabbed a round object from the child's hands and ran in the opposite direction. That creature, Vexplin said, his voice shaking, it could have killed that young human. Dr. Alan Rodriguez, Earth's xenobiologist, followed their gaze. Oh, that's just a game of fetch, he said calmly. The dog is playing with the kid. Playing? Zekthar could barely understand the word. A predator does not play with its prey. Dogs aren't really predators anymore, Alan explained. They're companions. They've been living with humans for thousands of years. The aliens watched as more children emerged from houses, followed by more large animals. The creatures had thick fur, strong jaws, and alert eyes. Some were as large as the human children themselves. Yet the children showed no fear. They petted the animals, hugged them, and ran alongside them. This is impossible, whispered Tyshul. Young creatures should instinctively fear predators. It is basic survival. The tour continued through the neighborhood. The aliens saw humans walking with their dogs on leashes, but even this sight was disturbing. The leashes seemed more like jewelry than restraints. The dogs walked calmly beside. They're humans, stopping when they stopped, turning when they turned. The restraints appear ineffective, observed Vexplin. Those creatures could easily break free. They're not really restraints, Amy explained. The leash is just to keep them safe from cars and to follow local laws. The dogs stay with us because they want to. The concept of voluntary cooperation between species was foreign to the aliens. In their worlds, different species either competed or ignored each other. The idea that a predator would choose to follow a human's lead was revolutionary. They stopped at a park where dozens of humans and dogs were gathered. The aliens watched in amazement as the humans threw objects and the dogs ran to retrieve them. The dogs always returned the objects instead of keeping them or running away. They returned the items, Zekthar observed. Why do they not keep them? Because it's a game, Jake replied. They enjoy it. Both the humans and the dogs have fun together. Fun? The translator struggled with this concept when applied to predator-prey relationships. A small human child, no more than 5 years old, approached the aliens. She was holding the hand of a massive dog with black and tan fur. The animal's head was level with the child's chest, and its teeth were clearly visible when it panted. "This is Sandy," the child said proudly, patting the dog's head. "She's my best friend." The alien stepped back in terror. The creature could easily knock the child down or bite her, but instead it sat quietly while the child scratched behind its ears. "Are you not afraid?" Tyshul asked the child. The little girl laughed. "Afraid of Sandy? She's nice. She protects me from bad people." "Protects?" Vexplin's voice was barely a whisper. "Once a mean man came to our house," the child continued. "Sandy barked really loud and scared him away. Mommy said Sandy was a good girl." The aliens exchanged glances of disbelief. Not only did humans live with predators, but they relied on them for protection. The natural order was completely reversed. Tour moved to a residential street where Lieutenant Colonel Ben Travis and his wife Helen lived. They had agreed to show the aliens a typical human home. As they approached the house, they could hear deep barking from inside. "That's Rex," Ben said with a smile. "He knows we're here." The front door opened, and a massive dog bounded out. It was even larger than the others they had seen, with a broad chest and powerful muscles. The aliens froze in terror as the creature ran straight toward them, but instead of attacking, the dog ran to Ben and began wagging its tail enthusiastically. It jumped up and placed its large paws on Ben's chest, licking his face. "Good boy, Rex," Ben said, scratching the dog's ears. "These are our visitors from space." Rex looked at the aliens with curiosity, but no aggression. He sniffed in their direction. Ben returned his attention to Ben. "Come inside," Helen called from the doorway. "Luna is inside with the kids." The aliens reluctantly followed the humans into the house. In the living room, they discovered an even more shocking sight. 2 young children, ages 6 and 8, were sitting on the floor with another large dog. This one was lying on its back while the children rubbed its belly. "That's Luna," Helen said. "She loves belly rubs." The aliens could not believe what they were seeing. The creature's vulnerable underside was exposed, and its throat was completely unprotected. Any predator in this position would be helpless. Yet the dog seemed completely relaxed and happy. "Is it ill?" asked Zekthar. "Healthy predators do not expose themselves this way." "She's not sick," the 8-year-old boy said. "She likes it when we pet her tummy. It makes her happy." The concept of a predator seeking physical affection from another species was beyond the aliens' comprehension. They watched as the children continued to pet the dog, occasionally hugging it around the neck. The dog responded by licking their faces and making soft whining sounds. "Those sounds," Vexplin said nervously. "Are they distress calls?" "No, she's just happy," Helen replied. "Dogs make different sounds to communicate. Rex and Luna both talk to us all the time." As if to demonstrate, Rex approached one of the children and made a soft huffing sound. The child immediately got up and walked to a cabinet, returning with a small object. "He's asking for a treat," the child explained, giving the object to Rex. The dog accepted it gently, being careful not to let his teeth touch the child's fingers. "The creature can communicate its needs?" Tyshel asked in amazement. "Of course," Ben replied. "We've lived together for so long that we understand each other. Rex knows dozens of words, and we know what all his different sounds mean." The aliens spent the rest of the afternoon in the Travis home, observing the impossible relationship between humans and their predator companions. They watched as the dogs followed the children around the house, always staying close but never threatening. They saw the animals eat from bowls on the floor, sharing the same space as the humans during meals. Most disturbing of all was bedtime. The aliens watched in horror as the children prepared for sleep, brushing their teeth and putting on pajamas. When they climbed into their beds, both dogs followed them upstairs. "They sleep in the same room?" Zekthar asked weakly. "Rex sleeps with Danny," Helen explained, "and Luna sleeps with Katie. They've been doing it since they were puppies." The aliens observed as the massive predators settled down beside the small humans. The dogs positioned themselves between the children and the door, as if guarding them. The children showed no fear, casually petting the animals before closing their eyes. "This is their natural behavior?" Vexplin asked. "Natural for them," Ben replied. "They're protective by nature. Nothing will get past them to hurt our kids." As the alien delegation prepared to leave, they were more confused than ever. Everything they had seen challenged their understanding of predator-prey relationships. The humans didn't just tolerate these dangerous creatures. They loved them, trusted them, and depended on them. "We need to understand more," Zekthar announced. "This relationship you have with these creatures, how did it begin?" Jake nodded. "We can arrange for you to meet with our historians and scientists. They can explain how humans and animals came to live together." The aliens returned to their shuttle, that night with their minds reeling. They had expected to find a simple, peaceful species ready to join the galactic community. Instead, they had discovered something impossible. A species that had turned natural enemies into family members. As they prepared their reports for the Galactic Council, one question dominated their thoughts. If humans could do this with apex predators, what else were they capable of? The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council lasted 3 days. The reports from Earth had shocked every member species. The idea that humans lived with apex predators was so impossible that many council members demanded proof. "We need to understand how this happened," Zekthar announced when he returned to Earth. "Show us your historical records. We must know when and how your species formed these relationships." Dr. Patricia Stone, Earth's leading expert on human history, met with the alien delegation in the university's main lecture hall. She had prepared a comprehensive presentation that would trace the development of human-animal relationships from the beginning. "The story starts over 15,000 years ago," Patricia began, activating a holographic display. "During this last ice age, early humans encountered wolves in the wild." The display showed images of prehistoric humans living in caves, surrounded by a harsh, frozen landscape. The aliens could see various large predators in the background, including massive wolves with thick fur and powerful jaws. "These wolves were apex predators," Patricia continued. "They hunted in packs, could take down prey much larger than themselves, and were perfectly adapted for survival in the Ice Age." The aliens nodded. This matched their understanding of natural predator behavior. Wolves were efficient killers, designed by evolution to hunt and survive. But something unusual happened, Patricia said. Instead of avoiding these predators, some humans began to approach them. The display showed cave paintings depicting humans and wolves working together. The aliens stared in disbelief at images of humans and predators hunting side by side. "Why would they do this?" Tyshel asked. "Approaching apex predators violates every survival instinct. Because humans recognized that wolves and humans had similar social structures," Patricia explained. "Both species lived in groups, both hunted cooperatively, and both cared for their young together." The presentation moved through thousands of years of human history. The aliens saw how wolves slowly changed as they lived with humans. Their ears became more floppy, their tails began to curl, and their faces became less threatening. "This is domestication," Patricia said. "Over hundreds of generations, humans selected wolves that were friendly, loyal, and helpful. The wolves that lived with humans had more food, better shelter, and more surviving offspring. The creatures chose to change themselves?" Vexplin asked in amazement. "In a way, yes," Patricia replied. "The wolves that cooperated with humans lived better lives. Over time, they became different from their wild ancestors. They became dogs." The aliens watched archaeological evidence flash across the screen. Ancient burial sites showed humans and dogs buried together, with the dogs wearing collars and jewelry. The emotional bond between the species was clear even in death. "Here," Patricia said, pointing to a display, "we see a burial from 12,000 years ago. This human was buried with 3 dogs and his hunting tools. The dogs were positioned as if they were still guarding him." Captain Steve Murphy, a military historian, took over the presentation. "Dogs weren't just companions," he said. "They became working partners. They helped humans hunt, protected human settlements, and even fought in wars." The display showed images of war dogs throughout history. Ancient Romans used massive mastiffs in battle. Medieval knights brought dogs to sieges. Modern soldiers worked with highly trained canines in combat zones. "These creatures fought alongside humans?" Zekthar asked, his voice barely a whisper. "They still do," Steve replied. "Military working dogs serve in armies around the world. They detect explosives, find enemies, and protect soldiers. Many have saved countless human lives. The aliens were shown footage of modern military dogs in action. They watched as a German shepherd detected a hidden bomb, potentially saving dozens of human lives. They saw dogs parachuting with Special Forces soldiers, ready to face danger together. Dogs volunteer for this? Tyschel asked. In a way, Steve explained. They're trained for the work, but they do it because they want to please their human partners. The bond between military dogs and their handlers is incredibly strong. The presentation moved to other animals that humans had domesticated. Aliens learned about cats, which had been living with humans for nearly 10,000 years. Originally valued for controlling rodents, cats had become beloved companions. Cats are solitary predators, Patricia explained. Unlike dogs, they don't naturally live in groups. Yet they chose to live with humans, and humans chose to live with them. The display showed ancient Egyptian artwork depicting cats as sacred animals. The aliens saw statues, paintings, and even mummified cats that had been preserved for thousands of years. Your ancestors worshipped these predators? Vexplin asked in disbelief. The Egyptians believed cats were divine, Patricia replied. They thought cats could protect them from evil spirits. Killing a cat was punishable by death. A presentation continued with horses, which had transformed human civilization. The aliens watched as Patricia explained how humans had domesticated these large, powerful animals and used them for transportation, farming, and warfare. Horses are prey animals, Patricia noted, but they're incredibly strong and can be dangerous. A horse can easily kill a human with one kick. Yet humans learn to ride them, work with them, and trust them completely. The aliens saw images of mounted warriors, cavalry charges, and modern horse racing. The partnership between humans and horses had shaped the course of human history. But the relationship goes beyond utility, Patricia continued. Humans form emotional bonds with all these animals. We love them, mourn them when they die, and consider them family members. The display showed modern examples of human-animal bonds. Families celebrating their dogs' birthdays, people crying at veterinary clinics, and elaborate pet cemeteries where beloved animals were buried with full honors. You spend resources on creatures that provide no economic benefit? Gekthar asked. Billions of dollars every year, Patricia confirmed. We buy special food, medical care, toys, and clothing for our animal companions. Some humans spend more on their pets than they do on themselves. The aliens were shown pet stores filled with elaborate products for animals, specialized beds, gourmet foods, toys, and even clothing designed for dogs and cats. The human pet industry was massive and growing. This is economically inefficient, Vexplin observed, but emotionally necessary, Patricia replied. The bond between humans and their animal companions provides psychological benefits that we value more than money. The presentation moved to modern times, showing how the human-animal relationship had evolved. The aliens learned about therapy animals that helped humans recover from trauma, service dogs that assisted disabled individuals, and research animals that helped advance medical science. These creatures help humans heal? Tyschel asked. Studies show that interacting with animals reduces stress, lowers blood pressure, and improves emotional well-being, Patricia explained. In many ways, our animal companions help keep us healthy. The aliens watched footage of therapy dogs visiting hospitals, working with children who had autism, and comforting elderly people in nursing homes. The animals seemed to instinctively know how to help humans in distress. The most remarkable thing, Patricia concluded, is that this relationship exists across all human cultures. Every human society that has ever existed has formed relationships with animals. It's a fundamental part of what makes us human. The presentation ended with modern statistics. Over 60% of human households included at least one animal companion. Humans shared their homes with over 900 million dogs and 600 million cats worldwide. This is not a recent development, Patricia emphasized. Humans have been living with animals for longer than we've had written language, longer than we've had cities, longer than we've had agriculture. It's one of our oldest and most consistent behaviors. The aliens sat in stunned silence as the presentation concluded. They had expected to learn about a simple historical curiosity. Instead, they had discovered that the human-animal bond was fundamental to human civilization. "We need to see more," Zekthar finally said. "We need to understand how this bond actually works." Patricia nodded. "Tomorrow, we'll arrange for you to meet with our animal behaviorists. They can show you exactly how humans and animals communicate and cooperate." As the aliens prepared to leave, they were more confused than ever. The historical evidence was overwhelming. Humans had been living with apex predators for thousands of years, and the relationship had only grown stronger over time. "How is this possible?" Paishal asked her companions as they returned to their shuttle. "I don't know," Vexplin replied. "But we're going to find out." The implications were staggering. If humans could maintain these relationships for thousands of years, what did that say about their capacity for cooperation, their understanding of other species, and their potential role in the galactic community? The aliens had come to Earth, expecting to meet another civilized species. Instead, they were discovering that humans might be the most remarkable species in the galaxy. Chief Researcher Vexplin of the Ascended Minds had spent 3 sleepless nights studying the data from Earth. As the Galactic Council's leading expert on evolutionary biology, he was tasked with understanding how the human-animal bond could exist. His findings challenged everything he thought he knew about life in the universe. "The biological evidence is impossible," he announced to his research team via holographic communication. "Yet we have observed it with our own eyes." Dr. Corinne Lewis, Earth's leading animal behaviorist, met with the alien delegation at the university's research facility. She had prepared a series of demonstrations that would show exactly how humans and animals communicated and bonded. "We'll start with basic communication," Corinne said, leading the group to a large room where several dogs waited with their human handlers. "Dogs can read human emotions better than most humans can read each other." She gestured to a woman standing with a golden retriever. "Watch Lucy's face as her handler changes her emotional state." The woman began to smile, and immediately the dog's tail started wagging. She frowned, and the dog's ears drooped. She looked excited, and the dog began to bounce on its feet. "The creature is responding to facial expressions," Taishul observed. "But how does it know what they mean?" "Dogs have evolved to read human faces," Corinne explained. "They can distinguish between happy, sad, angry, and fearful expressions. They've learned to interpret human emotions over thousands of years of living together." The demonstration continued with more complex interactions. The woman pointed to various objects around the room, and the dog retrieved them one by one. She used only hand signals, no words, yet the dog understood exactly what she wanted. "The level of communication is remarkable," Vexplin admitted. "The creature is interpreting complex visual cues and responding appropriately." "Dogs can learn hundreds of words," Corinne continued. "They understand their names, commands, and even abstract concepts like wait and gentle. Some border collies can learn over 1,000 words." The aliens watched as another demonstration began. A border collie named Sam was presented with a table full of objects. His handler asked him to bring specific items by name, and Sam selected the correct object every time. Ball, the handler. Syed and Sam brought a tennis ball. Rope, and Sam brought a rope toy. Book, and Sam brought a paperback novel. "The creature understands human language?" Zekthar asked in amazement. "Not just words, but context," Corinne replied. Dogs can understand the difference between get the ball and drop the ball. They interpret tone, body language, and situational cues. The next demonstration was even more remarkable. A therapy dog named Bella was brought in to work with a young child who had autism. The child was initially withdrawn and avoided eye contact with the humans in the room, but when Bella approached, slowly and laid her head on the child's lap, something changed. The child began to pet the dog's fur and gradually started to relax. Within minutes, the child was talking to the dog, sharing secrets and fears that he had never expressed to the human therapists. The animal is providing emotional support, Vexplin observed. But how does it know what the child needs? Dogs are incredibly sensitive to human emotions, Karen explained. They can smell chemical changes in our bodies, detect subtle changes in our breathing and heart rate, and read micro-expressions that we don't even notice ourselves. The aliens watched as Bella remained perfectly still, allowing the child to hug her, pull her ears, and even lie down beside her. The dog's patience seemed infinite, her focus entirely on the child's well-being. This behavior serves no evolutionary purpose for the animal, Teichel said. Why would a predator sacrifice its own comfort for another species? Because the bond between humans and dogs creates neurochemical changes in both species, Karen replied. When we interact with our animal companions, both humans and dogs release oxytocin, the same hormone involved in human bonding and love. The biological explanation was even more shocking than the behavior itself. The aliens learned that humans and dogs had literally evolved together, changing each other's brain chemistry over thousands of years. The creatures had been chemically altered to form emotional attachments? Vexplin asked. Not altered, Karen. Corrected. Evolved. The dogs that bonded most strongly with humans were the most successful. They had better food, safer shelter, and more surviving offspring. Over time, this created dogs that were naturally inclined to love humans. Commander Tony Phillips joined the demonstration to show the aliens' military working dogs. A Belgian, Malinois named Duke, was brought in, along with his handler Sergeant Mike Johnson. Duke and I have been partners for 3 years, Mike explained. We've served together in combat zones, and he's saved my life more times than I can count. The aliens watched as Mike and Duke went through a series of exercises. The dog detected hidden explosives, identified potential threats, and followed complex commands even under stressful conditions. The most important thing, Mike said, is trust. Duke trusts me completely, and I trust him completely. We're a team. 2. Demonstrate this trust. Mike called Duke to his side and then lay down on the ground, making himself vulnerable. Duke immediately positioned himself over Mike's body, alert and ready to defend his human partner. The creature will risk its own life to protect you? Zekthar asked. Without hesitation, Mike replied. I've seen war dogs take bullets meant for their handlers. They'll face any danger to keep their humans safe. The aliens were shown videos of military dogs in action. They watched as a German shepherd charged toward enemy soldiers to protect his handler, even though he was outnumbered and facing armed opponents. They saw search and rescue dogs working in collapsed buildings, risking their own safety to find buried survivors. This loyalty cannot be explained by training alone, Vexplin observed. The emotional bond must be genuine. It is, Karan confirmed. Dogs form the same type of emotional attachment to humans that human children form to their parents. They experience separation anxiety when apart from their humans, joy when reunited, and genuine grief when their human dies. The demonstration moved to the most disturbing example yet. The aliens were shown footage of a guide dog working with a blind human. The dog led the person through busy streets, around obstacles, and past potential dangers. The creature is taking responsibility for the human's safety, Tyshel said in amazement. It's making life-or-death decisions for another species. Guide dogs are trained to disobey commands if they believe their human is in danger, Karen explained. If the human tells the dog to go forward, but the dog sees a car approaching, the dog will refuse to obey. They call it intelligent disobedience. The aliens watched as the guide dog stopped at a crosswalk, ignoring the human's command to proceed because traffic was approaching. The dog waited until it was safe, then led the human across the street. The animal is overriding the human's judgment to protect them, Vexplin said. This level of cognitive reasoning is remarkable. Dogs are problem solvers, Karen replied. They can think independently, make decisions, and adapt to new situations. But they always prioritize their human's well-being over their own. The final demonstration was the most shocking of all. The aliens were shown children who had grown up with large dogs from birth. A 2-year-old toddler was playing with a Great Dane that outweighed her by over 100 pounds. A massive dog was lying on its side while the tiny child climbed on its back, pulled its ears, and stuck her fingers in its mouth. The dog remained perfectly still, enduring the child's rough play with infinite patience. The size difference is extreme, Zekthar observed. The creature could easily harm the child. But it won't, Karen said. Dogs understand that human children are vulnerable and need protection. They instinctively modify their behavior around small humans, becoming gentler, more patient, and more protective. The aliens watched as the toddler accidentally stepped on the dog's paw. Instead of snapping or growling, the Great Dane simply moved its paw and continued to lie still. When the child started to fall backward, the dog quickly shifted to cushion. Her landing. The creature is actively protecting the young human, Vexplin observed. This behavior serves no benefit to the animal. Actually, it does, Karen explained. Dogs that protect human children are valued by human families. They receive better care, more affection, and a secure place in the household. Evolution has rewarded this protective behavior. The demonstration concluded with the most emotional example yet. A hospice worker brought in a therapy dog named Charlie to visit with elderly patients who were dying. The aliens watched as the dog moved quietly from bed to bed, seeming to sense which patients needed comfort. Most Charlie spent extra time with a man who was clearly in his final days. The dog laid his head on the man's chest and remained motionless for over an hour, providing silent companionship in the person's last moments. The animal understands death? Tyshel asked softly. Dogs can sense when humans are dying, Karen replied. They often become more affectionate and protective during these times. Some dogs refuse to leave their dying owner's side, even when offered food or taken outside. The aliens were shown videos of dogs mourning their deceased humans. They watched as dogs returned day after day to their owner's grave, waiting for them to return. They saw dogs that stop. The emergency session of the Galactic Council lasted for 7 days. Representatives from 43 different species gathered to discuss the implications of what had been discovered on Earth. The chamber buzzed with heated debates as delegates struggled to understand what humanity's unique abilities meant for the future. The evidence is undeniable, Vexplin announced to the assembled council. Humans have achieved something we believed was impossible. They have formed genuine emotional bonds with apex predators and maintained these relationships for thousands of years. Admiral Matt Barnes stood before the Galactic Assembly, unaware that humanity's relationship with animals had become the most important topic in the known universe. He had prepared a standard presentation about Earth's readiness to join the interstellar community. He had no idea that the fate of galactic civilization might depend on humanity's dogs and cats. The question before us, Zekthar continued, is what this means for interspecies relations. If humans can cooperate with natural predators, Perhaps they can help us resolve conflicts that have seemed impossible to solve. The Dikmar delegate, an insectoid species that had been at war with the neighboring Vorthik for over 3 centuries, clicked its mandibles nervously. You suggest that humans could mediate between natural enemies? That is exactly what we suggest, Tyshel replied. Our observations indicate that humans possess a unique talent for forming bonds across species. Lines. This ability could revolutionize how we interact with each other. The debate that followed was intense. Some species viewed humanity as a potential threat. If humans could tame apex predators, what else were they capable of? Others saw opportunity. The galaxy was filled with ancient conflicts between species that seemed impossible to resolve. On Earth, Dr. Christine Walker was conducting her daily rounds at the Animal Behavior Research Center when she received an unexpected communication from the orbital station. The aliens wanted to speak with her about something called the Interspecies Harmony Project. "We don't understand what you're asking," Christine said during the video conference with the alien delegation. "You want us to help different alien species get along? Your species has demonstrated an unprecedented ability to form cooperative relationships with natural predators," Zekthar explained. "We believe this skill could be applied to resolving conflicts between different sentient species." Christine looked confused. "I study animal behavior. I don't know anything about alien diplomacy." "But you understand how different species can learn to trust each other," Vexplan added. "The principles that allow humans to bond with apex predators might apply to interspecies relations as well." The first test case arrived 2 weeks later. A Vekmar diplomat named Klickstall and a Vorthek representative called Morsith were brought to Earth to attempt negotiations. The 2 species had been enemies for so long that they could barely stand to be in the same room together. Christine suggested they start with something simple. "Before we talk about peace treaties," she said, "let's see if you can learn to be comfortable around each other." She introduced them to Max, her golden retriever. Both aliens were terrified of the large predator, but for different reasons. The Vekmar saw Max as a threat to be eliminated, while the Vorthik wanted to flee immediately. "Max is friendly," Christine explained. "He's not going to hurt anyone. But I understand you're afraid. That's natural when you encounter something unfamiliar." She began with basic exposure therapy, the same techniques used to help fearful humans interact with animals. The aliens sat at opposite ends of a large room, while Max lay quietly in the center. "Notice that he's not aggressive," Christine said. "His body language is relaxed. His tail is wagging slowly, which means he's content. He's not showing any signs of threat or dominance." Gradually, over several sessions, both aliens became more comfortable with Max's presence. They began to understand that their initial fear was based on instinct rather than actual threat. "Now," Christine said during their 4th session, "I want you to apply the same principle to each other. Klickstall, when you look at Morseth, what do you see?" "A natural enemy," the Vekmar replied immediately. "His species has been attacking mine for centuries. But right now, in this moment, is Morseth showing any signs of aggression toward you?" Klickstall studied the Vorthik delegate carefully. "No, he appears calm." "Morsith, what about Klickstall?" "She is not displaying threat postures," the Vorthik admitted. "Her mandibles are relaxed, and she is not making aggressive sounds." Christine smiled. "You're both learning to read each other's body language, just like humans learn to read animal behavior. Fear and aggression often come from misunderstanding." The breakthrough came during the 6th session. Max approached Klickstall slowly and gently placed his head on her lap. The Vekmar delegate, who had been terrified of the dog just days before, began to pet his fur. "He trusts you," Christine observed, "and you're learning to trust him." "But he is a predator," Klickstall said, still amazed by her own behavior. "And Morseth is a different species," Christine replied. But that doesn't automatically make him your enemy. The sessions continued for 2 months. The aliens learned to work with Max, to read his signals, and to communicate with him through gestures and tone of voice. More importantly, they began to apply these lessons to their interactions with each other. The dog has become a neutral focus, Morseth observed during one session. When we both care for the same creature, our differences seem less important. The success of the pilot program led to the establishment of the Interspecies Harmony Project. Christine was appointed as the first human director, with Max serving as the unofficial mascot and a symbol of cross-species cooperation. Within a year, the program had expanded to include 12 different alien species. The embassy on Earth became a neutral ground where ancient enemies could meet and learn to understand each other. The principles are surprisingly universal, Christine reported to the Galactic Council. Whether we're talking about humans and dogs, or Vekmar and Vorthik, the basics of trust building remain the same. The program's success led to even more ambitious projects. Humans began serving as mediators in territorial disputes, trade negotiations, and cultural exchanges. Their unique perspective as a species that lived peacefully with natural predators gave them credibility that no other species possessed. Commander Rick Hayes found himself appointed as the first human ambassador to the Galactic Council. During his inaugural address, he was accompanied by Bruno, his German shepherd. 6 months ago, Rick said to the assembled delegates, many of you are terrified of this dog. You saw him as a dangerous predator that posed a threat to your safety. Bruno sat calmly beside the podium, his tail wagging slowly as he observed the alien audience. Today, some of you have learned to interact with him. You've discovered that he's not a threat, but a friend. He's loyal, protective, and caring. A same transformation that happened with Bruno can happen between our species. The audience, which now included several aliens who had worked with therapy, animals, responded positively. Delegate Morseth even stood up to share his experience. The human methods work, he announced. My species and the Vekmar have signed our first peace agreement in 3 centuries. We are no longer enemies, but partners working toward common goals. The establishment of the Interspecies Embassy marked the beginning of a new era in galactic relations. Humans became the go-to mediators for species conflicts, with their animal companions serving as living examples of how natural enemies could become family. Dr. Lisa Park was appointed as the chief scientist of the Cross-Species Communication Institute. Her research into human-animal bonding became the foundation for new diplomatic protocols used throughout the galaxy. What we've learned, Lisa explained to a gathering of alien scientists, is that emotional bonds can transcend biological differences. The key is finding common ground and building trust gradually. The Institute's most successful program involved young members of different species growing up together, similar to how human children grew up with animal companions. Alien children who were raised alongside humans and animals showed remarkably less prejudice and fear of other species. But perhaps the most significant change was in how aliens viewed humanity itself. What had initially seemed like a dangerous quirk, humans living with apex predators, was now recognized as humanity's greatest strength. We have been thinking about this wrong, Sekthar admitted during a council session. We saw humans as a young species that needed guidance. Instead, they may be the teachers we have been waiting for. The transformation was symbolized by an unexpected friendship. Ambassador Sekthar, who had initially been terrified of human-animal companions, now worked closely with a therapy dog named Buddy during stressful negotiations. Buddy helps me remain calm, he explained to curious colleagues. When I feel my anxiety rising during difficult discussions, I pet his fur and remember that trust is possible between any species. The success stories multiplied across the galaxy. Species that had been locked in conflict for millennia began to find peaceful solutions. Trade routes opened between former enemies. Cultural exchanges flourished where none had existed before. The humans have given us something we never thought possible, announced the Supreme Chancellor of the Gala.